Hello everyone, my name is Clancy and I'm going to be telling you about mushroom cultivation and how much money you can make off of different kinds of mushrooms. I'm going to be putting them in different categories, going from non-profitable to more profitable to most profitable. Just note that this is more of an overall guide and prices or markets can fluctuate in different places. But first, here are some definitions. Mycorrhizal, a relationship between a fungi and a tree where both benefit from each other. Parasitic, a relationship that describes a fungi and a plant or tree where one, normally the fungi, takes the other party's nutrients for nothing in return. Saprophytic, a fungus that eats and decomposes dead materials like wood or leaves. Secondary decomposers, they're fungi that take compost or manure and grow in them. Substrate, the material in which a mushroom grows in and on. Let's start with three mushrooms that are at any grocery store: button, portabella, and cremini. Even though they go under dozens of names, they're all the same mushroom species, Agricus bisporeus. They're easy to grow since they're secondary decomposers and grow on cheap and readily available substrate, compost. Although these mushrooms are easily cultivatable, they're hard to sell since you have massive competition, and with widespread availability, it makes it hard to etch into the market. And unless you can cater to a small population, have a large growing area, and also have customers or chefs that prefer organic food, you're not going to make much of a profit. Next, we have Asian market mushrooms. These mushrooms can be more profitable, but still hard to sell since their availability is still plentiful at, you guessed it, Asian markets. First is the shiitake mushroom. This is the only one you'll find outside of Asian markets and in expensive organic stores since they're more normal looking than other mushrooms. They grow on logs that need lots of humidity and take a long time to instate into said logs, making home cultivation difficult and large-scale operations easier. The next mushroom is the beach mushroom. It's easier to cultivate than shiitake, but needs specific jars to grow out of. Along with their very specific growing parameters, it makes it not worth it to some cultivators to grow. Then there's the enoki. It goes well in soups, and in Japan, it goes with noodles. Just like the beach mushroom, the problem is with the growing jars that only allow one place for the mushroom to come out of. Finally, there's the Nameko, which you might not even find at some Asian markets. Nameko has the highest profitability margin since they're somewhat unheard of and grow like shiitakes on logs or hardwood sawdust. All these mushrooms are good to sell at farmers markets or to restaurants with Asian cuisine. There's a problem, however. These mushrooms are mass-produced by Asia since they're the largest consumers and have found ways to grow mushrooms easily. So again, like the last category, farmers markets and chefs are the way to sell. Now we have beginner mushrooms, oyster and cordyceps. These are the mushrooms most people start with cultivating, and for good reason. They don't require bulk sterilization, requiring lots of heat and energy, and have a pretty open market due to their low supply and average to high demand. Not to say they aren't tasty. Oyster mushrooms have a low cook time, and a look that doesn't look too outlandish, making them the most popular of choice mushrooms. Oyster mushrooms come in an array of colors, all with different growing conditions. The ease of cultivation hierarchy, from high to low, being blue oyster, which of course is gray, phoenix oyster, pearl oyster, yellow or gold oyster, and pink oyster. This hierarchy flips when it's warm or summer, since the pink oyster needs hotter conditions and the blue oyster needs colder conditions. These are also easy to cultivate due to their substrate, which is straw, that is cheap. Cordyceps are also on this list of beginner mushrooms since they're easily cultivatable, and I'll tell you why in a second. Next we have medicinal mushrooms. They're a bit higher on this list, and are on the same level of cultivation as the next category, but the future of these mushrooms are bright, with some being able to cure major diseases. All of the following except cordyceps need sawdust substrate, which costs more than straw and needs to be heated at a higher temperature, around 255 degrees, to kill all bacteria, and unlike culinary mushrooms can be dried and powdered and kept for a long time, making the shelf life much longer, but this comes with the drawback of a smaller market. First, there's maitake. It helps with regulating blood sugar and has been shown to have anti-cancerous properties. Next, there's the turkey tail mushroom that has been shown to have anti-cancerous properties, especially with breast cancer, and in some cases has cured breast cancer in the notable case of Patty Stamens at the Swedish Cancer Institute in Seattle. Then, there's the lion's mane mushroom. It helps with memory and neural rebuilding and can be used as a countermeasure for Alzheimer's disease. Then there's the reishi mushroom, also known as the longevity mushroom, and has been shown to increase longevity while when cultivating are extremely resistant to bacterial infection, making them a good candidate to cultivate. Cordyceps help with energy and fatigue and are grown on grain, like rice or rye, making their growing expense cheap while having the same market as other mushrooms. Chaga is also a medicinal mushroom, so I put it here, but I'll talk more about it in a minute. And finally, the more expensive variety of Cordyceps, Cordyceps sinensis. It's pretty cool since it takes over the body of insects and makes them bury themselves alive, like here. And then there are three mushrooms that aren't widely used, but I believe they have a bright future. First, Xylaria nigripes. It's grown on sawdust like other mushrooms, but in nature grows on termite nests. It's used as an antidepressant and a cure for insomnia and epilepsy. Wolfporia cocos grows on the roots of pine trees and has been shown to help in curing a slurry of illnesses, including cancer, AIDS/HIV, and insomnia. And finally, Agricus blazei. It's a relative of the portobello mushroom, being in the same genus, Agricus, and has been shown to counteract the development and symptoms of Parkinson's, which I find exciting since an uncle of mine actually has Parkinson's. Now we have cultivatable culinary mushrooms. They have a larger market that you can sell to, and sell well with gourmet chefs and at farmers markets. Also, most people would prefer eating mushrooms rather than taking mushroom pills. These are the mushrooms that fall under the choice variety, but are still cultivatable. First we have maitake. It's an Asian mushroom that's also known as hen of the woods. It has a unique shape and unique mushroom taste that makes a good garnish and a replacement for cremini or button mushrooms in an Asian dish. Lion's mane has a funky taste that is normally roasted whole and served with dishes from various cultures. Then there's the king oyster mushroom. It's a favorite amongst vegans since when sliced thin can make a decent vegan bacon. And finally there's the wood ear fungus. That's used in stir fry since it can hold up to frying while still having a crunch like cabbage. Next we have mycorrhizal mushrooms, or the higher end of choice mushrooms. So when you're growing these mushrooms, you're also going to be growing trees. Although all of these mushrooms taste good, some of these cultivation methods are not worth it since the profit is not good enough. First, we have morel mushrooms, the prized mushroom of the United States. In very specific conditions, they've been cultivated without trees, so small-scale cultivation is possible. They're prized due to their savory flavor and their toughness in the face of deep frying, sometimes being sold at state fairs. Chanterelles are the next mushroom and are yellow in color and have savory flavor that is wanted by gourmet chefs. They grow on pine trees in the wild and are normally foraged for. Next, there's the Craterellus cornucopioides, more commonly known as trumpet of death or black trumpet. That's normally dried and used in sauces. That also has a unique woodsy flavor. Next, there's the porcini mushroom that has a very strong, savory, blue cheesy flavor that goes well in soups and in pasta dishes. And finally, one of the most expensive mushrooms, the black truffle. Due to its unique pungent smell that goes well with whatever you can name, from steak to spaghetti to Italian ice, is a European and American delicacy that is shaved on dishes and used to infuse oil to get a similar taste. It goes for up to $43 an ounce and is prized in many countries. Here's where it gets interesting. Uncultivatable or incredibly hard to an almost impossible extent, mushrooms and fungi. These are some of the most prized fungi, either due to their flavor or their medicinal properties, although they're on the same level as mycorrhizal since people can forage for them and still make a decent profit. First, there's the white truffle. Its smell is unique and pungent, making it the craving of chefs, having an even larger price point than black truffles at $80 an ounce. Once, a 4-pound white truffle sold for around $1 million, making this the most profitable fungi, if you can find them. There have been reports of successful cultivation, but none large enough to make it into a larger market. Next on the list is the matsutake, which only grows on certain pine trees in Japan and Oregon. The problem has been with cultivation. While possible to inoculate trees, those trees have to be decades old, since the matsutake is both mycorrhizal and parasitic, killing young trees while not having successful results on larger ones. The profitability of matsutake is on par, in some occasions, with black truffle, because of their off-season prices, especially in Japan, that can drive up to $70 a pound. For the lobster mushroom, it's a different story. The lobster mushroom tastes kind of like lobster, with a seafoody kind of taste. But the lobster mushroom is actually a parasite of two genera of actual mushroom, either Lactarius or Rusula. Both of these genera are mycorrhizal and are hard to cultivate. Their profitability is sort of hard, since when you can find these, in the freezing cold nonetheless, they only appear in small patches and have a lowish market. And finally, the only uncultivatable fungus here that's used medicinally, chaga. Just gonna say this, chaga looks like an alien coming out of a tree from a dark dimension, so the only logical course of action was to chop it off, grind it up into a powder, and eat it. It's good that we did, since chaga can be used to help regulate blood sugar and with chemo patients after their ordeal. It's normally mixed with coffee or tea to make its bitter flavor palatable. The problem with cultivating this fungus is its parasitic nature, since you need to grow old enough trees that takes 20 to 30 years, plus the time it takes to inoculate another 2 to 3 years, then the time to fruit 1 to 2 years, and after it does fruit off of the trees, it ends up killing them within a decade or two, making them have a time-consuming cultivation. A faster method of getting chaga is foraging, and when found can fetch up to $60 a pound dried. Then on the other side are the niche mushrooms that I'm going to clump together since people don't really crave their flavor, or they're hard to grow but not profitable. These include the Caesar mushroom, the cauliflower mushroom, chicken of the woods, hedgehog mushroom, the honey mushroom, the giant puffball, shaggy mane, the winterfoot, and the wine cap. There is certainly some market amongst some gourmet chefs with some of these mushrooms, but unless the chef wants a certain mushroom specially ordered, it's not needed to be grown full time. And that's about it. All of these are subjective, however. What might be worth $72 a pound in one area might be only worth around $3 a pound in another. And with some mushrooms on the lower end of these categories, you can still make a decent profit in the right market. Of course, with any market, it's good to talk to people at the farmers market and chefs to see what they want. Thanks for watching. Ratings and criticisms are appreciated, and make sure to tune in next time.